I got this book at a thrift store, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to try to make all the blocks in it, and that would certainly help me in my endeavor to be a better crocheter, to master the art of crochet. I picked out some of my scraps, and you can't quite see it, but I'm trying to see if they're all very similar in size by doing wraps per inch. I get a little bit better of showing that here in a minute when I realize that I'm not on camera. A little concerned about the size of the ball though, because I don't know if it's enough, and I don't like plain yarn chicken. But that one was 10 wraps per inch. We'll pick up the pace a little bit and move on to my color choice decisions. In the past, I would have just picked up whatever and used it regardless of what size the yarn was, and I'm starting to realize that if you want a good consistent product, that's probably not the best idea. This color is the one that I want to use as the main color, and it will definitely be a game of chicken. So I've figured out what their sizes are, and now I'm going to decide which of them I'm going to use. I'm starting with the variegated as the base of my, not really base, as the main color that I want to use for the triangle stripes square that I'm making. The struggle is real. The beginning is always the hardest, I think. I was watching some YouTube videos the other day about crocheting, and she turned her work the opposite direction that I usually turn my work, pulling the yarn across the front of her next stitch instead of across the back, and I decided that I would try it. And ultimately, it was a good decision. I like the way that it worked out, and it, while I'm not happy with the edges on this particular square, in the end, it made a better edge than I would have gotten otherwise, I think. In the pattern, you start with a chain 2, and then you make 3 stitches, and then you make increases as you go, and I can't hold that in my head. So in a minute, I'm going to stop and go to Excel after I try writing it out on a piece of paper first, what the row counts are going to be and how that's supposed to work out. Right now I'm writing down the repeats that I need to make so I can keep track of them. And I haven't quite figured out yet that that's not going to be enough. I've been making a lot of granny squares lately for a sweater that I'm working on, and my desire to yarn over is strong because I'm thinking about doubles and this entire thing is in singles. She also has chain 1s at the beginning of each row, and that's never been something that I've been very fond of. I just did a chain 1 there, but in a minute I'm going to pull the entire thing out and start over with no chain 1s and just make a looser first single crochet at the beginning of the row. I've been experimenting with standing stitches and other ways to start a row that doesn't involve a chain. I just don't like the way they look, and the purpose of this channel is to master my hobbies and figure out how to make things look better and be better. Admiring my work and not liking it very much, and this is the moment when I realize I need something a bit more than just a check-off list, because I need to be able to count the stitches. I'm also unhappy with it, and so I frog the whole thing and start over so that I can do something a little bit different. I just don't like those chain one stitches. And I was struggling with keeping up with the stitch count in my head. If I stop and start, I never know where I'm at anymore. Right in the corner of the upper right hand side of my screen, you can see a little timer. I do work on the Pompadour method, I think that's how you say it, where I work for 30 minutes and I get up for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. I go stand up, walk around, do dishes, do something for 5 minutes every 30 minutes. And so by doing that, I often lose track of where I'm at, and this new chart that I just made in Excel helps me keep track of how many stitches I should be counting as I move forward. At this point, you can see I've ditched the chain one, but I haven't committed to how I'm going to turn my work yet. Later I'll figure out that I don't want to turn it that way, and instead of turning it, which way is that? I don't know which way that is. Instead of turning it the way I just did, I'll be turning it the other way. Now I'm going to have to think about that and figure it out. Things are progressing a bit smoother now with my chart and without the chain ones. up the pace a little bit here. I'm sure that this is probably boring for everyone to watch. So we'll just zoom to the end of this color. I do believe that we all think we can count until we become crafters, and then we have to question ourselves. So I stop and count a lot. And it's funny to me because when I count and get the number I'm expecting, I just automatically presume that I counted correctly. And if I count and don't get the number I'm expecting, I automatically presume that I counted it wrong and I count again. Never second guess myself when I get the number that I was looking for. I don't know why that is. Coming to the end of the first color. Yay! And now I have a funny crochet style. It's because I'm left-handed, my mom's right-handed, and, well, she just did the best she could trying to teach me. I do most of the work with my left hand, I think. But I've watched some other YouTubers, and maybe that's not as unusual as I thought it was. As I finish this row, that is, according to the directions, half of the square. Everything that I do moving forward will be a decrease, which is exciting. Now I get to switch to the second color, which I'm going to use the gray because I have more gray than I do blue, and I think it'll look nice there anyway. This is also a new technique for me of how to join yarn. I'm pretty happy with it, but it definitely requires more practice. I'm not sure how to maintain the tension on the stitches when you have two tails just literally hanging there doing nothing. My inclination is to tie them together, but the point of that join is so that you don't have knots. The rest of the pattern is 4 rows of each color. So I'm coming to the end of my 4th row of gray. I'm going to switch over to the blue. I'm a little worried about the blue because I feel like I'm going to be playing yarn chicken. Turns out the blue is not what I should have been concerned about. It was more the variegated color. But they both worked out in the end, which is nice. Ah, my favorite thing, counting stitches and realizing that I don't have the right number. And I'm not sure why. Someplace I have messed up. I do not have enough. So I'm going to count the gray row below and see if that's where the problem is. Which it turns out it's someplace in the gray. So it's time to frog. And I end up frogging both the blue as well as the gray because I don't know where the problem is and I'm not really sure how to fix it. But first, let's count again. Teasing myself here that I have enough of a tail that I could add the stitches that I need. But I know better. There's not enough. That is not going to work. We're not even going to pretend like it's going to work. Time to frog. But first, I'll take a break and come back and do it because I was frustrated. Back from my break and frog in the gray. I set my little frogged piece aside and I told myself I would use it for the next gray section, and you'll see later that I promptly forgot and did not do that. But it's alright, I'll use it for something else. I have lots of scraps that I can use for lots of little things. Finishing up gray for the second time and counting again, of course, and again. Much happier with the results this time. I end up with the right amount of stitches. Not sure what I did the first time. Back to blue. Let's see if I can get a little farther. almost finished, and very happy to say that I won the game of yarn chicken this time. I don't really like the way the last row looks. It's a crochet 3 together. So I try it again. See if I can make it a little bit tighter this time. I still don't love it, but it's better. And there's my finished square. Just need to tie in my ends and block it. It's a little wonky right now. I'm hoping that the blocking will solve that for me. It is supposed to be a 6-inch square. Mine is 8.5, but I did not use the recommended hook size. Probably didn't use the recommended yarn either. Sometimes I get tired of crocheting with little tiny hooks, so I used one that made me happy. And since I don't really have a project in mind and I'm not making something to a pattern, it doesn't matter what size my block is anyway. Right here it says that the block should be 6 inches, but I could not get my camera to focus on that, no matter how hard I tried. But that's okay. Time to weave in my ends, and I will be back after I do that, because that's boring and nothing I enjoy doing anyway. I should note that I am in the process of working on enjoying the process. So the ends are weaved in, and I'm going to go get ready to block it. I did learn from watching a knitting video the other day that using a pointy needle is better than a blunt needle. So I switched, and that did seem to help. What I'm doing now is creating myself a blocking board. I don't have one big enough for the size of this block, so I'm just going to create one really quick. And then we'll get on to blocking it. I moved my ruler over to measure from the 1-inch mark rather than the end of the ruler, but then I forgot to add that to the other end, so I had to do it again. I am taping it just to a cardboard box so that I have some place to poke my needles in, and it'll hold them. And I am covering the whole thing in plastic wrap so that the paper doesn't get wet with the blocking, and so that I can reuse the board in the future. But you know, plastic wrap is fiddly. I already got my square wet, so now I'm just going to squeeze out some of the extra water so that it will dry better when I'm blocking it. Down in the corner you can see my granny square sweater that I'm making, and it's on the blocking board that I have, but that board wouldn't be big enough anyway. And right there, you don't see it, but I dropped all of my pins on the floor. And then I forgot to push record. So here we are in the middle of pinning it. But that's okay. I think I drew my lines for a 9-inch square and then decided it was going to be 8.5, or maybe I just completely forgot how to measure. It's hard to say. Probably a little bit of both. Now that it's dry, I can unpin it from the board and see how it came out. While I'm unpinning it, I will tell you that I am happy with the square. I'm not super happy with the edges, and I'm going to reserve my judgment on that until I use it in a project somewhere, because then theoretically all the edges would be covered up. I think it's pretty and it came out nice. Probably not my favorite thing I've ever made, so maybe I would give it a 7 out of 10. It worked up pretty quick, which was very nice. I wonder how it would look if I had used the right size hook, though. It is a rather large square, but that's okay if I decide to do... Oh, I sneezed. I had to stop my voiceover for a second there. It'll be interesting to see what I end up using it for, or how I end up using it. Maybe I put all the squares together into a blanket or some pillows or something. But all in all, it's a nice square. I'm happy with it. I wouldn't be jumping for joy to use that particular pattern for something else, I don't think. Maybe. Maybe not. I'll have to think about that in the future. But for now, I learned something new, and I improved my crochet skills just by virtue of using them. Thanks for watching.